Chat would be on my side.
What would have been genius is if you had just like screen recorded all of it on like your iPhone, like ahead of time, and then you sold those on the dark web, North Carolina.
It's the best. The content that we put together before the show starts is unquestionably better than the content we'll be putting together now. What's going on, everybody? NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, January 15th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Eric Lindquist, and we are brought to you by BetMGM. We've got a 5-game slate ahead of us. The early games are in play. NFL is on. I'm sure Eric and I will have a fine time trying to battle the Buffalo Bills for eyeballs right now. I can't imagine why anybody would want to watch
We're
the
not
NFL
winning.
game.
We're not winning.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Eric, what's up?
Sometimes, man, the conversations that lead into the show, they're like the thing that you hold on to, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. These are good. I'm here in Arizona. I came out to go see my folks last second. Gonna go to the Kings Suns game tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Gonna go to the new DraftKings Sportsbook. They have like a dinner spot over at TPC Scottsdale, going there tonight. So excited to just have 2 days here hanging out with the puppers and bouncing around Scottsdale and head back Wednesday morning. But a pretty light day of content today, tomorrow, and then, yeah, back on the grind with golf on Wednesday.
What do we got for golf this week?
We got an unbelievable field, actually. It's the Amex, which is generally a throwaway event. It's 3 different golf courses that they play in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
But this year you have Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele. You have like 5 of the top 15 players in the world playing in this freaking event out of the middle of nowhere. I don't know why. I don't know how, but they're all playing in it. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Jordan Klein, we probably need to go now. We probably need to go. Yeah.
You mean to the event?
To the event. Yeah. I'm guessing Saturday. I mean, there's just too many good golfers in this damn field.
Now I want to go.
Yeah. Flying out to Palm Springs. Yeah, you are.
I will be in Nashville this weekend.
No, that's fun. What are you doing there?
It will not be fun. If you want to take a second right now, type in Nashville, Tennessee weather.
Here we go. Nashville.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everything on the East Coast is butthole right now, so there's that.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be there Friday through Sunday, and the low on Saturday is 7. Oh, Jordan, we talked about this earlier. The high 13? Is now up to 20. Yeah, it is 16 right now. Yeah. That low, the high of 20 on Saturday was a lower number earlier today. So starting to get a little toasty up in Nashville. All that hot chicken.
Yeah, you're going to need it. 13 degrees right now. What is going on?
It's brisk. It's brisk. It's 56 for me here. It was 65 out earlier. So I don't own the clothes that will keep me warm when I get there. That's not going to be the fun part.
Oh, man. Well, enjoy. It's 69
ready to
degrees
talk some basketball?
Chilly here. Yeah, it's awfully chilly. Yeah, let's rock.
It's awfully chilly. All right, let's start it off here, folks. Chicago Bulls, 4-point underdogs in Cleveland, 222 total. We are still waiting on the news for Patrick Williams. He is questionable. Everybody else on the Chicago side appears to be available. On the Cleveland side, basically the same thing, only Max Strus is playing the role of Patrick Williams in that he is also questionable. 10 to 15% ownership on Caruso, Vooch, Patrick Williams, and Zach LaVine. 10 for Kobe White, 10 for DeRozan. So it's kind of just like flat ownership to the 6 main dudes from the Bulls. And it's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's kind of what it should be. I mean, the usage is going to be hit or miss with some of these main guys. I mean, Kobe White, you expected him to take the largest hit. The last 2 games, it's actually come down a little bit to 18.9, 20.5% usage. But the minutes are there in such a pronounced way still that it's hard to say that he's some kind of a bad play. 7,200, the tag's starting to come down to reflect it. Zach LaVine's kind of my main question for you. Shooting guard, small forward, now played 41. Obviously, that was overtime. 35 and 36 minutes now, the last 3. Starting to see that ramped up. And the usage has been awfully spotty still. 13.6% usage his first game back. 14.5 last game. There's going to be one of these games where he goes out, he inflates to a 30, 35% usage, and you just kind of need him. if this is that spot, obviously Cleveland, you don't think of it being the most appealing matchup, a 109 implied team total here, but like eventually we got to see that form of Levine again, right?
You would think. I mean, I would guess he would want to like shoot more and prove his worth. Not that anybody really needs to see what
Yeah,
Zach
get the
LaVine
hell
is,
out
but
of Chicago.
yes, yeah, yeah. You would think that. I just don't think they can trade him. I don't think anybody wants him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Jordan Poole thing. So they should just get on the phone with Washington.
Swap him out for Jordan Poole.
Just swap. Just Jordan Poole is the sloppy like seconds, but now thirds, but now nobody, like absolutely nobody wants him. Like I doubt there's a G League team that's like, yeah, we should give Jordan Poole minutes right now.
No, I don't. You couldn't. He's got to be one of the most untradeable things that exist in the league right now, if not
Fact.
number one.
Yep.
Levine's not too far behind though. But that said, I'd like to play him today at least a little bit. 7,300
that's what I'm
looks
getting
good
at.
with that eligibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna play 20 lineups on the way to the sports book. And like for me, I think having some Levine in my life is gonna be the way that I go with this basketball team. Kobe White, 7,200 of the tag is at least there. And then Vooch, center is one of those positions where Vooch is always somebody that you can kind of star highlight center. But now that Thad Young just eternally is sitting there at 4,100 and can step into any type of a role with this team, I guess there's some savings that you kind of need at center today between him, Olynyk, Dorian Finney-Smith has center eligibility. None of these guys look great in terms of a fantasy point per minute guy, but like, or sorry, not fantasy point per minute guy, but in terms of value, but like you kind of need the savings. So 7,500, I prefer Chet Holmgren. We would really prefer Chet Holmgren with the SGA news. So there's an opportunity to just play a lot of him instead of Vooch. And I think that's probably the path I'll go.
Yeah, right now I'm basically sitting neutral on everybody for Chicago, except for Patrick Williams. I'm a little bit heavier on him. I think it's just price and flexibility for what this slate is. But Caruso right around the field, Kobe White, DeRozan right at the field, Vooch, Levine right at the field, but 24% of Patrick Williams, which I'm not surprised by. And we do show him as a very positive leverage play in the boom bust tool right now.
If he ends up out, would you play Io, considering 29 minutes last time out was kind of in foul trouble, but like, not really. I mean, 5K, it just feels like him and Patrick Williams, either one can be in the closing lineup on any given night. 5K Io, at least I would entertain a share or two in the event that Patrick Williams was out, but I don't expect it.
No, I mean, he's such a bad per minute dude. Like if he plays 28 minutes, you're hoping for 21 fantasy points. So at that point, you're talking about like 4.2x his salary. It's functional on a 5-gamer. He goes from completely unplayable to guy that will show up in like somewhere around 5% of lineups. So it unlocks him a little bit, but it doesn't unlock him the same way it unlocks Patrick Williams if he just simply plays.
Much better way of saying it.
I try. Cleveland side's a little different. Now we do need the Max Strus news, but we have single digit ownership to everybody on Cleveland. Highest owned dude, Donovan Mitchell, 9%. A little bit different on FanDuel. A $4,500 Sam Merrill is currently pulling 32% ownership. I think the ownership on Mitchell is kind of crazy. If I were playing this slate tonight, I would be jamming him. 46% is what I have at this moment, and it wouldn't be going anywhere. We're talking about a guy that's projected for basically like 37 and 5 today. We have this like giant question mark hanging on top of SGA for later on in the night. SGA pulling 22% ownership, Mitchell pulling 9. I think relative to salary, these guys should be a little bit closer. I like kind of flipping the script on both of them. And it also lets me into a situation where maybe I don't have to I don't have as much Shea that I need to swap off of a 1030.
I'm with you. I'm very much interested. Obviously, if Max Strus ends up out as well, Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, even at 5K. I mean, Sam Merrill is the most popular guy in this team. I think there's got to be the assumption that Max Strus would be out for me to get to him at even 9% ownership here at the moment. He'll actually look functional in the event that you get Strus out there. But Donovan Mitchell, no doubt for me, is the guy you want to get to. The usage is going to be outrageous. He's a 1.35 DraftKings points per minute guy. He's coming off of 45, 12, and 6. That seems useful. Playing massive minutes in any competitive spot, which for all intents and purposes, 4-point spread, that's what this is. So I'm completely with you. I'm a little bit floored. You look at the boom bust tool as well, nearly 5% optimal percentage difference between the ownership and that. So you're getting some nice leverage, not something you generally run into at the top of the range, getting like a multi-positional piece like Donovan Mitchell, point guard, shooting guard. So there's 4 different spots you can play him at. And then you're getting massive leverage to boot with it. and Max Strus fans about, you're going to see maybe an extra tick up in usage. Like for me, this is kind of like a no-brainer tournament play. You just group it by the boom bust tool, and you're going to play more than the field.
I like it. That said, I don't have anything else here from Cleveland. A very small amount of Isaac Okoro, a couple shares of Jared Allen, who at 8,500 is just at a price tag that is monumental for his career. It's really hard to get anything else for Cleveland. If you get Strus out, then obviously you're going to get to at least a little bit more of Sam Merrill, and that creates a little bit more value. But I don't think Strus being out, like, you feel better about getting to Isaac Okoro. You certainly feel better about getting any shares of Karis LeVert. You do feel pretty good about getting Sam Merrill. You certainly probably feel better about Donovan Mitchell too, but I don't think it creates anything amazing. This game sucks. It's 222 total. We've got 3 other games right around 240. Like, it's just a different environment.
8,500 Jared Allen or 9,100 Bam Adebayo?
It's an interesting discussion because with the way that Jared Allen has been playing, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute over the past 30 days, he's been a lot better than Bam. We might have Jimmy Butler out there making things a little bit harder. Bam, 1.28 over the past 30 days. I think it's easier to get to Jared Allen.
I think so too. And that's where I'm kind of getting at. We're seeing Bam Adebayo with nearly 10% ownership. Jared Allen is at 5.5. I ran a crunch before it, and beforehand, I ended up going in the Sims tool and poking around a little bit. We're both, you're not playing this late. I'm playing it a lot lighter than normal. And for me, it's just going to be running 20 lineups. Do I have a couple with Jared Allen? Yeah, I probably do, considering he's 5%, but there's no doubt that like Chet Holmgren is that guy, that star centerpiece you kind of want to have in the back of your mind at center. And that game goes on forever. Like, we're not going to know the SGA news for a long, long time. I'm assuming that he plays. I don't even know how I'd flip a coin for it right now, I suppose, but I lean towards him being in, I suppose. But in the event that you get that run out where it's just, I would want to have every center spot available to get to Chet. And so there's like an opportunity cost of locking up a center position early. So just keep that on your radar for the news. Like, the timing of the news is more important than the news itself. Jared Allen is somebody that if we got to lock and you had just the opportunity to get different in one spot there, I would be just fine with him playing even like in one lineup.
Anything else for Cleveland?
Max Strus being out obviously can lead to the Sam Merrill thing. I don't want to play him at 9% in the event that you have Max Strus in. And in the event that Strus plays, I don't completely hate him against Chicago.
No.
The short shooting guard, small forward, you could run into a couple shares, but nothing appealing the way that Donovan Mitchell is. That's a great shout out by you. 46% would be a hefty number.
It would. That's the kind of guy, like, if I ever see big stands like that, they're the kind of dudes that I hope that they're on. I don't ever want it to be on Trey Lyles like it is from time to time. I want it to be on Donovan Mitchell.
I'm jamming Royce O'Neal tonight. That'd be fun.
Yeah, like, that's the kind of thing that when it happens, it's like, oh, this will definitely fail. But when you watch a game and you turn this on, it's like, all right, I'm cheering for Donovan Mitchell to go crazy. Like, that's just a much more fun experience.
Yeah. I will say I've never gotten Sam Merrill correct, so everybody should play him tonight at 5-0.
There we go. Schedule for the rest of the night, quite easy. NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next, and then everything just ends. That's it. We don't have anything else for the rest of the day. Very simple. Go watch some sports, everybody. Stay inside if it's cold where you are, because lots of people, Northern Ohio, Oklahoma City, St. Louis, Guitar Man saying that it's -37 wind chill, so you should move, just like things like that.
No,
seems
thank you.
Terrible. Seems terrible. They have places where it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I'm never ever leaving the Southwest ever.
I'm never moving north. That's the only way that I can say it. I don't care where I am on the planet, but cold weather will only exist for me if I'm traveling there on the opposite time of their cold weather. So if you want to get me to Maine, you better have a house there in June.
It's a good call.
You should use our avatar. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, grab our logo, use it at DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo, because if you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you're in luck. You get 1 month of whatever you're looking for at Stokastic. Probably the NBA Sims package. It'll get you projections, ownership, boom bust, the Sims tool itself, the contest generator, post-contest evaluation. Really fun stuff to look at. Lineup generator as well. Premium Discord. Stop by, say hi. All we need you to do is tweet your result at Stokastic HOF. Show us your contest. Show us the lineup that you had in. Let us show you off, and we can reward you with a month a stochastic, whatever you want. Miami Heat, 1-point underdogs in Brooklyn, 220 total. This team is never the same team. They're like a chameleon. Every day they play, there's just like a couple different pieces in and a couple different pieces out. Somebody else ends up on the team that you didn't know was there. Today is no different. It just never stops for these guys. Jimmy Butler, now questionable. He has been out for a bit with a sprained right first MP joint, which is a thing that I've never heard of in my life. Tyler Hero is available. Jaime Jaquez got hurt yesterday in the middle of smashing in the first half, a guy that I had to stand on, obviously. He's out. Kevin Love out. Kyle Lowry doubtful. Caleb Martin available. No ownership coming in here. Single digits across the board on DraftKings. Jovic is getting some love on FanDuel at 4,900. Bam is getting some love there. 16% owned at 9,200. I don't have a single share of the Miami Heat at this moment.
Yeah, nor should you probably. However, I only have this as like an 8.5 man rotation. I don't know what they plan to do. Like, I feel like I'm making a mistake with this team right now. So if we just work through it, I mean, I think the minutes are pretty easy and consolidated amongst Hero. I think Butler walks into 30, 32 minutes. Duncan Robinson, 32, 34 minutes. Jovic, Bam Adebayo. Like, I think that's pretty clearly like going to be your starting five. Josh Richardson, Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith. I mean, to have just like 8 guys and then I'm just kind of throwing a minute or two towards guys like Orlando Robinson just to try to like spread it out a little bit, because otherwise I do get to a couple of these pieces, and that's where I think it's difficult. It's like I'm almost forcing myself away from playing a team that probably is just playing 8 guys today, and that feels incorrect. So that's why the Bam Adebayo thing is kind of interesting between him and Jared Allen. Bam Adebayo, 1.32 fantasy point per minute guy. Jimmy Butler, he hadn't been as good this year with a 1.09 rate. I mean, he's always going to be Jimmy Butler, a good two-way player, and then ramp it up there come playoff time per usual. But with no Kevin Love, no Jaime Jaquez, I mean, Jovic feels like the guy that could be sneaky here at 5,500. The tag is going to keep everybody away, but he's nearly a fantasy point per minute player and 0.98 DraftKings points per minute this season. So, like, I think he's the guy I want to get to. But now he's just power forward, and it's just a cluster, you know what, because there could just be no usage left to go. He can have a decent rebounding rate from time to time, but if you run into lineups where it's Adebayo and Highsmith on the floor with him, this is just such a gross spot. So, like, I think Jovic or Tyler Hero would be the guys I would get to, but I'm not getting to anything here otherwise, so it just sucks.
Yeah, I think the only 2 guys that I can get to here are Bam and Tyler Hero. Not that I would have any problem getting to Jovic. I've been trying to get that dude right for 2 weeks now, and then I continue to fail. They just project really poorly. They're all like at 4x their value or below for me. The only guys that are actually projected like real players are Bam and Tyler Hero. Like, I don't think Butler, even at 8,100, is feasible today.
How many guys do you have in the rotation too?
8.5, 9. I don't know if the 10th, like, I don't know if it's Orlando Robinson, Thomas Bryant, combine those into one guy. It doesn't really matter to me all that much. Jamal Cain could play with no Lowry out at this point too. So I don't really know who that 9th guy is. I don't think that it matters, considering I can't get to 1 through 8 either.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, I think my brain is just engineered when I see stuff like this. I'm like, oh, there's got to be a tournament play here. There's got to be value here. And then you run the Sims tool and it just has nothing pop up. And you're like, oh, the priors are correct. So maybe don't overthink it. But again, it's just like my old tournament brain trying to say, hey, you got to like something here. So, like, I had a share of Jovic. I had 2 shares of Tyler Hero when I built out 40 lineups, which is kind of what I was planning on. I'm just going to play 20 today. So, like, I doubt that they end up coming through the cracks at the end.
Olrad hit us with a super chat. Not ideal, though. I got screwed. The 5 to 158 promo for BetMGM is not in New York. Well, that sucks for you, Olrad. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Good news. Only $5? Saving grace.
There it is. Yeah,
I
was gonna say that's the way that I look at it. $5. I'm not even like, well, I'm not gonna put it. $5 can be a lot of money. It depends where you are. If you live in New York proper, $5 is like 1/3 of your cab ride to get anywhere. But I apologize if there was some kind of a mix up for you there. Obviously, all the promo stuff, that's not something Josh and I are in charge of whatsoever. It's just one of those things where when there's great opportunities to get people money, not necessarily sure of all the stuff in the States, but you want to be taking advantage of it. If you're 21 and over, if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm sorry.
But he gave us $2 in order to bitch about 5, which is pretty ironic.
Olrat's a good guy.
I know he is. He's fantastic. That's why I said it that way, where I think he would appreciate it.
Brooklyn looking a little bit different than Miami. 15 to 20% ownership. We'll call it 10 to 15 on Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Nick Claxton. You've got around 20 to Mikal Bridges and 35 to Dennis Smith Jr. coming off the bench. I'm getting to these guys. I've got a lot more ownership to Brooklyn than I do for Miami. Leading the charge, Mikal Bridges, 7,300, shooting guard, small forward eligible, pulling 19% ownership. I do think he is very interesting to talk about in relationship to an 11% owned Zach LaVine. We're talking about two guys at the exact same price, the exact same positional designation, both in games that are relatively unappealing, similarly-ish owned, but I am getting to Bridges as the most exposed guy. I am under on Dennis Smith Jr. at 4,800. He scares me a little bit, but could continue to play more minutes. They seem to have soured at least a little bit on Dinwiddie. What's opening up for you on Brooklyn?
Not a ton, actually. So you're getting to Bridges. I'm not quite there on anything in my first run there. I'm a little bit worried that at some point in time we get like Lonnie Walkered in some kind of like a pronounced way. This is where it just gets a little bit obnoxious because he's outside of Claxton, like or Day'Ron Sharpe, I suppose, too. But like Lonnie Walker is going to go out and when he is on a floor, Chuck, I have no idea what to make of the minutes because he's like out of the rotation, but he played 25 on the 11th. And I mean, I just have no clue where he's at or what their intentions are with him ever. It's like he could be a guy that just comes in and snipes other guys. I don't think he's going to be owned enough. I don't think there's really any point in try to take shots on that with, I have him projected for 10 minutes, so it is what it is. But I think it just takes down Cameron Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, like enough of these guys, because I just have such uncertainty in going to them. And I'd just rather embrace some risk coming up later. You have a great game environment in Indy and Utah, obviously. You have a great game environment with OKC and Los Angeles that could turn into value. And it's like, do I want to lock up lineup spots with a bunch of these dudes knowing that things can break my way a little bit later in the night? I don't know. I guess it's something for you guys to weigh out what your risk tolerance is to it. But like, not that 20% Mikal Bridges is any kind of a major problem, but he's only a 1.03 fantasy point per minute guy. And now if you run into Lonnie Walker getting and resurfacing himself, you're talking about a guy who's going to have a 25% usage sharing the floor with him, which really caps what that upside can be. And the game environment just sucks. I mean, it's only a 111 team total going up against Miami. Obviously, the salary at 7,300 is nifty, but like for me, I kind of prefer Claxton if I'm going to get to anything from Brooklyn, which is weird to say about a shooting guard, small forward, cheap Mikal Bridges.
I don't trust this team in any way. And it's sort of where you were leading with that Lonnie Walker discussion. I have, like we're seeing Spencer Dinwiddie be the point guard. But like Dennis Smith Jr. is sort of like the point guard that is getting the love. You have Lonnie Walker, who played a bunch of minutes last time out. You would think they want to integrate him a little bit more. They certainly have the minutes to do so. We also saw Cam Thomas his last time out get ultra hot, just went absolutely insane in the last game. He was much more popular this morning than he is now. He's basically unowned. They can move so much around. Like they have no loyalty to Dorian Finney-Smith. He's probably not on the team in a month. They have no loyalty to Royce O'Neal. He's probably not on the team in a month. These guys are going to end up on contenders is my opinion. So maybe you do start playing Lonnie Walker a little bit more right now. Hell, maybe you start playing Lonnie Walker a little bit more to see if he has any value to be shipped out, if he can pick up any sort of heater. It's the guys like Bridges and like where he's kind of just going to be there. And I don't really know what that means for him. I just really like that price and positional combination, but I want to keep a close eye on his ownership in relationship to LaVine, because if those guys start to separate from each other in any way, I'm going to want to flip-flop their ownership.
Yep, that's a perfect way of explaining it. Again, I'm just kind of playing, not devil's advocate, but like for me, I'm just not getting to him as much if I'm prioritizing the evening games, which is kind of where it seems my lineups are heading. And so 7,300, if he fits in with your lineups, I'm not saying don't play him, but be aware that Cameron Thomas has a 30+% usage and a Lonnie Walker 25+% usage that could play anywhere from like for Cameron Thomas, you're definitely going to see floor time of some kind, 18 to 32 minutes. Like that's a range of outcome for a guy that's going to drastically change the way you look at Mikal Bridges on a day-to-day basis.
We head to Boston now. 6-point favorites in Toronto, 239 total. We got the news earlier today. Jaylen Brown is going to be out for this one. That could dramatically change the entire scope of this slate. There was not really any ownership coming into Boston before. Boy, oh boy, did that change. Call it 15% to Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis. 23 coming into Jason Tatum. Scattered ownership to a couple of the other guys from Boston, but the big one we need to talk about, a crisp 40% to $3,900 small forward, power forward, Sam Hauser. I have 23 minutes for Sam Hauser. We have 24 minutes for Sam Hauser. We have him massively over-owned, but that tends to happen for these kind of guys where like they might not be in the optimal, but they're still the functional value you need. I've got him in 82% of my lineups right now. I think it's really hard to get away from this value because we just don't have it anywhere else.
Yep, that's the way I look at it too. I have him in let me double check. He was my highest owned player earlier. And yep, we have, where does it go? 82%. All right. So that was out of 150 though. I'm only playing 20. It's going to be one of those things. You look at a guy like Sam Hauser and you're just like, what am I doing? Like, I got to be able to fade this. People are donkeys. And then you start running the Sims tool and you start playing out iterations of this slate where SGA is in, Aaron Nesmith is in, and you're just kind of toast. Now, I think you want to be playing a lot of him, even if that news breaks that way, because Sam Hauser at 3,900, the usage is way down, 0.76 fantasy point per minute guy, but it's got to see a little bit of a usage influx here, considering his whole point of being out on a floor is the ability to knock down a three occasionally and then just, be a stick figure on defense with long arms. So there's that. Jaylen Brown off the floor. That should give a little bit of a boost here to some of the other ancillary pieces. But Jason Tatum, 9,700. We talked about Donovan Mitchell. I love him, and I really love Jason Tatum on this slate. I would really be mad at myself if I didn't have a lot of SGA and he's in at 10-2, but the ownership's kind of already there, 22%. So like, I don't think he comes in like any lower owned. So I kind of like the idea of Mitchell and Tatum in these early games. And then maybe you can build some value around it later. But as you said before, Sam Hauser is just kind of like a guy who fits well or just way too easily into lineups, assuming that he ends up starting, of course.
By the way, we got an ownership update 8 minutes ago. I don't know if you have that in front of your face, but just wanted to let you know that we do have a new run of things since we've gotten started.
Thank you.
Ayo Dosunmu available to play. Dalen Terry available to play. That is really only relevant information if Patrick Williams is not available to play.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. What do we have for that updated ownership on him? So Sam Hauser's still 40% in our new stuff. Like I'm just fine being overweight to that, considering small forward, power forward eligibility.
What do you want to do with the rest of this Boston team, though? Just kind of pick and choose your starter or your star, so to speak. Do you feel? I'm assuming you don't really feel all that different whether you have Jason Tatum or Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday. Like it all kind of just works for you if you get a Boston Celtic dude in your lineup.
Yeah, pretty much. 1.33 DraftKings points per minute is Jason Tatum. That goes up to 1.45 with Jaylen Brown off the floor this season. And that's a pretty hefty 452-minute sample size. I mean, that's kind of what you would expect to have happen for a guy like Jason Tatum. But then the obvious trickle-down effect is some of these other guys that are cheaper that fit into lineups. Like, how do they compare? I like Derek White a lot. 1.25 DraftKings points per minute without Jaylen Brown on the floor, 194-minute sample size. Drew Holiday, I mean, you kind of expected him to take a backseat a little bit more so to Tatum and Brown, but like he's taking a backseat to Derek White now too. So 7,200 for Derek White, I like a little bit more. And then Zinger, I thought I would be playing a lot of, but it's just not showing up for me right now. And I'm not sure why. 7,900 against a Toronto front court that, obviously doesn't have a lot of answers for step back 3-point shooter Kristaps Porzingis here in this spot. No. Sam Hauser massively undersized. Obviously they've a lot of different iterations. They're not Sam Hauser, but Pascal Siakam. We got to just kind of sit here and figure out uh, how they're going to go about playing defense. I mean, we all watched Anthony Davis eviscerate this front court. Defensively, they don't add a whole lot of anything here. We'll talk about Thad Young here as well, this kind of ownership, but I kind of just not spraying and praying, but prioritizing Jason Tatum, prioritizing in a big way Sam Hauser. Then it's Derek White for me in the pecking order. And I wish I was getting to Porzingis, and I know that he projects out pretty decently well. What is that, like 5x? But for me, just not showing up in lineups at the moment.
Yeah, I only have I have a little bit of all these guys: 10% Porzingis, 12 Holiday, 14 Tatum. Very much under on Derek White, that $7,200 price tag. I just have a hard time running it down all the time, even though he's been at 1.1 fantasy points per minute over the past 30 days. To me, it's just assuming this breaks the way that we want it to. Now, like, I expect the starting lineup to be Holiday, White, Tatum, Horford, Porzingis.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier. I was going to say, so Sam Hauser playing 24 minutes. I mean, he can step into a starting role. They played this exact same Toronto time. That was his last start on the 29th, but that one was Brown was in for that one. So that was kind of just like that was a choice that they were making. It was
like he can get more minutes, and he's going to still get north of 20 just by being the bench guy, even if he doesn't. But there's definitely more to come from Sam Hauser if you need it. That makes, and at 3,900, it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
On the Toronto end, we've got about 15% ownership coming into Gary Trent and quickly about 10 to Pascal Siakam, 4 to Scotty Barnes, who might as well not exist in this discussion point. There's a lot to talk about for Toronto. Then we're around 20 for Schroeder, 20 for Barrett, 26 for Thad Young. I could not disagree with this more. I don't understand what's really happening here. It's really odd to me. I don't know what's causing this ownership disparity. I don't even necessarily mind looking at Thad Young and thinking like, oh, he's 26% owned today. You can't have him be 26% owned and have Jonte Porter be at 3 when these guys are separated by $100.
Especially with what we just saw the last game. Like Jonte Porter played pretty darn well. I know it was a massive blowout there where Utah just went completely berserk. 31 minutes though for Jonte Porter. I don't know. It feels as though that's I'm kind of with you because Jonte Porter, he's over a fantasy point per minute guy so far. I know it's a small sample size and just getting going. He's played all of like what 14, 15 NBA games total in his career. But like, I'm with you. I'm a little bit confused why we don't have a little bit more coming into Jonte Porter. That was something that if you go through some of the lineups for like late slate stuff from the other night, there were a lot of top players that were playing more Jonte Porter, and definitely was kind of a mistake on my side not to have it. But like, now you can rectify that mistake pretty easily when you see 26% going towards Thad Young as the like quote unquote safe play between the two. But like, we have Jonte Porter projected for more minutes. So I see it exactly the same way you do, where I'm a little bit confused what's going on with it here. I think the other discussion point that I'm just confused on is Gary Trent having double-digit ownership here, because there are many ways where these minutes continue to hover around 2,200, like 20, 22 minutes here, because Schroeder quickly, like getting involved quite a bit on the floor together. RJ Barrett, obviously going to a true center, I guess, like a Jonte Porter for a lot of these minutes as well. Like, I just don't see what the utility of having a double-digit owned Gary Trent is when there's so many other pieces in later games here, like in the Neesmith range, if SGA's out. Like, there's so many guys that I wouldn't want to have like a 20-minute tops Gary Trent, who's a 18.7% usage, but like overall just a terrible fantasy point per minute guy over the course of the season. 0.74. Why is he double-digit owned?
I have him. I don't want to have him. By the way, 52-yard rushing touchdown for Josh Allen.
Jesus, you got to be kidding me.
In case you need that.
I did not, because I basically got off all of my Josh Allen because I'm a fish.
You said it. Anyway, 4,300 for Gary Trent, point guard, shooting guard eligibility. I think it's just a function of the slate and the position that's causing it to happen. Like, who do you like more, Gary Trent or Sam Hauser today?
Sam Hauser by a mile.
Interesting. Okay.
Like,
I'm not so sure that those guys are all that different.
Really?
Yeah.
There's $400 is a lot. I mean, there's at least that.
40 to 13%
0.76,
in ownership, I think
0.72.
probably makes up for that a little bit too.
Yeah, I would say that, there's probably an argument to be made for that. So,
I don't want to be
I just got
standing
done
for Gary
talking
Trent,
about
by
how
the
I'm
way,
a
either.
fish
It's
with
not like I
Josh
think he's
Allen.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it's more of like, all right, I'm playing a 3,900 Sam Hauser because he gets me other things in a lineup. There are other opportunities, other guys that I can have access to. 4,300, I just kind of like go immediately to Indiana and I look at like Isaiah Jackson. He's 4,600.
Sure.
You've got,
Yeah.
a number of pieces like Jordan Award has shown up in that rotation. Maybe we see him continue to be there in the event that Neesmith isn't there, but like he played 18 minutes at a competitive spot against Washington with no Neesmith. So like, I think there's a chance for him to potentially be there at 3,100. Obviously OKC, everybody's appealing. Like Isaiah Joe, 3,800 would be the absolute nutties, and he's much cheaper there. Lou Dort, Casson Wallace, Kenrich Williams. Like there's so many of those guys that would be far more appealing. Obviously, those games are much, much later. And so you have to kind of make up your decision. It's like, I'm more inclined to take in $3,900 punt value that everybody's jamming and know that I'm holding hands with like 40-50% of the field. And that's kind of the other thing where the Sims tool kind of just gears you in that direction, because like Gary Trent, you really are trying to get different there, but you're playing a 1v1 Sam Hauser for $400 cheaper and then just hoping that he goes out and flames throws quick. But I think Sam Hauser, we're projecting for more minutes. He's cheaper. For me, it just kind of feels like it's all right. But yeah, as you said, 30% difference in ownership is definitely still a thing.
Are you liking anything else for Toronto?
No. I mean, I'm a Emmanuel Quickly stan. I bet on him. 6,900 now. It's pretty tough. Sharing the floor a lot here with Dennis Schroeder too. We're starting to accumulate sample size, but that assist rate is going to be an issue if they're going to be sharing more floor time together, and it's not Gary Trent out there. But Pascal Siakam, 8K, not really getting there either. Did you say you were getting to any Scotty Barnes? Because obviously 8,800, he's $1,000 cheaper than the two guys that we want to get to, and Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum on the other side of this game. But like 8,800 for the sake of getting different. The guy's over a 1.3 DraftKings points per minute player, and he is very, very good with point guard, small forward eligibility. I'm just not getting there today.
Not a single share. I've got a little bit of Thad, a little over on RJ Barrett. I'm neutral on Pascal Siakam, neutral on Schroeder, quickly over on Trent, like I mentioned. But yeah, I find Scotty Barnes very, very difficult to get to. Holy shit. The Spurs are running down the Hawks, only down 6 now.
Stop it. No, that means Trae Young went like way over that number by now. Yeah.
What did you need?
Yeah. Well, it was at 31.5 was the
points?
deal, and 31.5 was, he's at 33. I just saw.
Yes,
he had 29 at half, so I knew I was on slim margins there. And Wembanyama's at 28. I need him to go under 33.5 very badly.
Spurs outscored them by 15 in the third quarter. They're up 11 in the fourth quarter, but they're still down 9. Guess that's what happens when you build a bit of a lead.
I hate it here.
Well, if you like money and if you're not Olrat, BetMGM's got a hell of a deal for you today. If you click the link in the description or the one that pops up in chat, sign up at BetMGM. You bet $5, you get $158 in bonus bets. 2 $50 bonus bets and a $58 bonus bet. This is a Super Bowl promotion. Doesn't work in New York, Puerto Rico, and Nevada, I believe. That's what I'm assuming PR is. I don't think that is a state to my knowledge, but I am not as smart as I used to be. Anyway, worst case scenario here for you. You bet $5, you lose, and you lose your 3 bonus bets, and you're out $5. Best case scenario, you hit 1 or 2 of those bonus bets, and you're really sitting on a nice little bankroll to get yourself started. You could use OddsShopper to try to help you out if you need more plays, or sign up for OddsShopper, hop in our premium Discord, talk to Eric if you want to. I don't do any of the pick'ems or the sports betting Discord stuff, but could be in like 2 months. We shall see. North Carolina coming soon. Ultimately, take advantage of this deal, guys. To get those bonus bets, you could really take a shot on save them for the Super Bowl. Make yourself have a fun night if you want to. Throw out 3 bets for the Super Bowl and have something fun to sweat if that's the way you want to play it. Either way, legal age for gambling in most states is 21 or over, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Indiana Pacers. 7-point dogs in Utah, 245 total. Single-digit ownership to everybody on Indiana right now. The problem for the Pacers is that there's a Q tag on Bruce Brown. There's no Tyrese Halliburton. There's a Q tag on Aaron Nesmith. We need those Q tags because they will create some value. But if everybody is in, I find it really difficult to find one guy on the Pacers that you like. They kind of all just look the same.
Yep. It's all the tags have been adjusted to a certain extent, but if Nesmith is out, I think there's at least something we can mine out of this. I mean, there's God, Isaiah Jackson. I have such an Isaiah Jackson problem every slate like this where he's 5% owned, but he's 4,600, and we know that he's going to play backup center minutes to Miles Turner more than likely. 18 and 20 with the last two, and seeing him be more of like a fundamental part of this rotation again. Yeah, there's a minutes downside, but like there's also chances for him to play blowout run. They're 7-point dogs. There's chances where Isaiah Jackson plays really, really well, which happens quite frequently. 1.25 DraftKings points per minute guy. I mean, God, at 4.7%, I'm playing more of him than I should. So there's that. Jalen Smith, 5,400. I think he would obviously look a little tick better. Bruce Brown Jr. not really getting to that one here at the moment. And even TJ McConnell, I got a couple of shares of. I've brought him up a lot of times, even at 7K and knowing that he's coming off the bench, but 25 minutes, 26 minutes, there are chances that he lands into those kind of spots. And he's the best fantasy point per minute player on the entire team besides Halliburton. So it is what it is. I don't know. It's a team that I think because of the game environment, obviously the tags are not conducive for what you're trying to do on any slate, but like on a 5-gamer like this, I think finding ways to just get to a couple of them over the field, which isn't all that hard, kind of something I'm willing to embrace and hope Nesmith lands out.
I was over quite a bit on Nesmith earlier. I'm not now. I'm 2xing on Nemhard. No one should be surprised. I have 8%, yeah. He's 4. And then I have 12% of Obi Toppin, but I'm just, unless we get Nesmith and or Bruce Brown out, I think this like entire situation becomes really, really gross.
Yeah, it's like pretty gross in general, but yeah.
It's just all these like MPE shooting guard small forward dudes that are like 5,500 to 6,500. How do you trust who you get? Because I don't.
You don't trust it, but I will say one thing is that it's an hour and a half until the OKC Lakers game tips off, and like we don't know the way that news is going to break or what time that news is going to drop, but like if you get to 9 p.m. Eastern time and this game locks and then you get the news afterwards, like it's all right to have a couple of these guys. Like there's massive upside with the game environment alone. 245 total, 119 implied team total. Like that's not nothing. Obviously, It's not reflective of like the rotation and the salaries or anything like that. But like if you had Benedict Mathurin, 6,400, go out and just chuck it every single time down the floor, I wouldn't be surprised. 23% usage, it can be a thing that occurs for you. I think if you made me play one guy in one lineup right now, it's disturbing to say out loud, but I still think Isaiah Jackson would be that guy for me.
All righty. Utah, it's very different. Call it 15% ownership to Colin Sexton, John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, Keontae George, Chris Dunn, Lauri Markkanen, and Walker Kessler. You also get Jordan Clarkson at 34%. You've got Simone Fontecchio at 8%. Everybody is getting love for Utah. It probably helps to face the 26th ranked defense and number 2 team in pace. I've got a bunch of these guys, but some guys I just don't have at all. Some guys I'm 2xing the field. I'm neutral on Clarkson. I think you just kind of have to have a bunch of Utah. I just don't know if you have any confidence in the guys that you're getting, but I'm more than 2xing Lauri Markkanen. So I'm getting the guys that at least have real talent.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to do things, is like getting to guys who are more likely to score points. I like that. I like that. Jordan Clarkson, 6,700. I mean, the guy has been outrageous for the last month and a half. You're looking at low 30s pretty much every time he touches the floor. Might miss a rotation in some type of blowouts, but he's probably a reason for some of the blowouts here of late. It's a team that's 8-2 in their last 10. I mean, this is a Utah team that's starting to figure some stuff out. And this is obviously the number one matchup you would want to see on the other side. Them or Washington, 1 or 2 in some capacity, because they bring pace and they bring really no defensive presence besides Miles Turner on the days he decides to play defense. So Jordan Clarkson, I'm just fine getting to him. 34.5% ownership. Yeah, that's fine. I think it gets a little messy when you talk about Olynyk and Kessler being the next two in terms of ownership here. I get more Markkanen. Anybody who listens to me, I always get overweight to Lauri Markkanen because the minutes also have a chance to trail up here shortly. We could be seeing 34, 35, 36 minutes for him in some of these competitive spots. They've played a lot of blowouts recently. The Denver game wasn't even all that competitive. The Toronto game was definitely not competitive. And so, you have a 7-point favorite here. We have them in for just 33 minutes. 35, 36 is well within the range of outcomes, and that would be awfully fun. Small forward, power forward, 8,400, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. Those are all really nice things. So there's a lot of interest I have specifically in Clarkson, Markkanen. I just don't find a lot of value here to mine out.
You name the two of the three guys that I'm getting the most of. The third is a guy that you did not tend to enjoy, and that was Walker Kessler.
Dunn. Oh, okay. There you go. Walker Kessler.
5K center. I think it's just a little bit of that is just like running away from the Thad Young ownership too, and it's funneling me a little bit. I only have him in for 21 minutes. We have him in for 20. Do I love it? No, but just center's kind of weird on this slate today, so I'm kind of punting it to a degree. I'm getting a bit of Fontecchio at 4,600, considering he's only 8% owned. He's a guy that is just out there and always a part of their stuff. Minutes have been trending down a little bit though, so I'm mildly nervous. Like, I don't have John Collins. I do have a little bit of Chris Dunn, which I hate, but the position really gets you there. He's only 10% owned. It's not too bad. I think ultimately you just need to have a bunch of Utah. Their aggregate exposure is 146%. So you're talking about like one Utah guy or two Utah guys and basically everything that you see built. I have basically the same amount of aggregate ownership. It's either just big stands and not a lot. And like, so I'm sort of like taking extremes instead of where you see the ownership today is basically just like giant averages. I'm either doubling it or going to zero.
Okay. I mean, that's on a 5-game slate. I have no problem with it. On a 5-game slate with no value, I have no problem with it. I just think, maybe something shows up from OKC. Maybe it doesn't. For you with Walker Kessler, it's like you have him for 21 minutes. I think for me, it's just a little bit different. I have him at 20, and then I have Isaiah Jackson for 17, and it's like, well, Walker Kessler's pulling 16% ownership to like a sub 5% Isaiah Jackson. He's got the better fantasy point per minute rate. Obviously, it's close to being neutral in terms of projection when you talk about that difference and then the difference in their fantasy point per minute rates. But yep, I totally get everything that you're doing here with Utah.
I think as we talk about these centers, whether that's Walker Kessler or you mentioned Isaiah Jackson, I think the moral of this story for all of them is I don't know why people aren't paying attention to Jonte Porter.
Yeah, I think honestly that might be the guy that we talked about, 4,200. Like, there's a pronounced minutes upside coming his way at some point in time. Like that, this could be one of those. I'm trying to think of like the center rotations that we've seen where it's like 22, 26, but 26 towards the bench guy. I think that
was Walker Kessler like 2 months or like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, that's true. But Jonte Porter, I mean, 4,200, and once people see it, once it happens, you can't capitalize on it the same way. Like that's the other part of it. Like, he's 3% now.
Right.
If this ends up being the flip, if this is the opportunity that Jonte Porter gets to play over Thad Young for any kind of a pronounced run, you're missing the boat, because then he's going to be popular next slate. So I do think that, like, doing these last couple shows with you, like, Jonte Porter's the guy that, like, oh, maybe I should be playing more on this slate than I am, but like, can't really do anything about it now because everything's filled.
Yeah. And like, I'm not saying to jam him or anything, but if he's projected for 3 or 4% ownership and you're like, all right, I'd like, 15 or 16, that's a pretty big stand that doesn't necessarily have to ruin the rest of your night. And you see all these other centers like Walker Kessler already at 16% ownership. He looks like a nice GPP play.
I am very, very, very here for it now.
Final thing for me to touch on is going to be you guys using the promo code DRIVE to sign up for the NFL Sims Max package. That's going to take you all the way through the Super Bowl. If you wanted to check out what we've got on the NFL side, it's $99 to finish off the season. You also get our PGA Sims. That access will last one more week, so you'll get this entire tournament this week, showdowns and the main slate. For this upcoming tournament, you get to test out PGA along with every single thing you could want for the NFL for the rest of the season. I think it's a pretty good deal. Again, promo code is DRIVE, $99 to close out the season. Final game, 10:30 start. Enjoy it. OKC, 1-point favorites in Los Angeles, 238 total. The elephant in the room is the Q tag on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's projected for 22% ownership. We're seeing 22% going to Jalen Williams as well. 10 to 15 on Chet, Isaiah Joe, and Lou Dort. Scattered ownership to everybody else. There's not much to say. Like, obviously play Shai Gilgeous-Alexander if he's in. He's really good. There aren't that many pay-up options. I have no qualms getting there. I kind of like Anthony Davis on the other side more, no matter what. But it's not the point. It's Shai. Like, everybody gets it. I don't think we need any, like, real Shai thoughts. So do you like anything for OKC if Shai plays other than Shai?
Other than Shai? No.
Yeah. I think we can confidently just agree that, like, we like Shai.
We like Shai. We like Shai very much. Chet Holmgren, I always get around the field or a little bit over. Again, he's been the best rookie in the NBA until Victor Wembanyama's second half against the Hawks, it would appear. But SGA, shit, guys. He's very, very good at basketball. And if you need me to tell you that, I don't know. 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. You go to his prop market and 31.5, 32.5 in the points in the prop market right now. You're looking at assist baselines, sitting 6.5 in this kind of a spot. No D'Angelo Russell on the other side is kind of sad. Where like the opportunity of no D'Angelo Russell, because I assume that he ends up playing basketball here tonight, but we don't know that for sure. He got downgraded to questionable, so usually that leads them towards being out. But like, I kind of want him to be in for SGA just to watch him tool with D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves a little bit. But he's going to do that against good defenders. He is outrageous. He is good. You should get to him. I think a little Jalen Williams is all right. 22% feels a little bit extreme here, but like,
yeah,
if SGA's out, now we can like flip it, because this is where I think like Josh Giddey ends up being the guy that. What does his minutes ceiling look like with SGA out?
He doesn't really normally get like a massive bump, but he has been playing a little bit less. I think you're probably projecting him for like 31.
Okay, because it just feels like from a ball handling perspective, like they can have other guys rotate in, but we haven't seen like the Josh Giddey games of last year where he would get up to 32, 34 minutes. Like he's been pretty hard capped all year around that 30 number. Yeah. Like he hasn't exceeded it in, I don't know how many games it is now. It's been like an eternal amount, but like it's just one of those things where I think about it from a tournament perspective, depending on when the SGA news drops. He's either going to be in and then we know OKC looks exponentially less appealing, or he ends up out early and everybody floods to Giddey. And I just think that I would be willing to play way over the field on Chet, Jalen Williams, Dort, Joe, Wallace, Kenrich maybe, like gets maybe a little bit more. But like, I do think Giddey's the one guy that I'm at least apprehensive about. And I have a feeling that people will end up jamming if that news comes before lock. So just something to keep in mind, because I think he would be a very interesting part of this slate, considering 1.15 DraftKings points per minute player. You would see an increase to it, but do you really see an increase to the minutes? I'm not sure.
Yeah, if we get Shai out, I mean, you're obviously wanting to get to as much of OKC as you can at that point. The entire scope of the team changes. If it happens after 9 o'clock, the value becomes less interesting. It's probably just unlocking AD or LeBron for you in those situations. Yeah. But like Cason Wallace is going to become like a really nice play. Giddey is going to go from what he is now to like very popular. Jalen Williams will become very much more popular. Chet, more popular. I think Vasily Micic becomes just a hair sneaky in GPPs. I don't know if it'll matter. I don't know if he falls into enough minutes, but he's one of the few guys that are left on this team that has like point guard style qualities as well, if they want someone else to run it. Cason Wallace isn't like a huge assist rate guy. So he's kind of just, maybe he would be if SGA isn't around, but I don't think it'll project well, and it's a total flyer. But
I get nervous they might dust off Trey Mann and just start him and keep everybody the same.
So they played Trey Mann 18 minutes on the 11th, but that is also a game in which
they won by 60
people played for the Oklahoma City Thunder that day.
Is that good?
That did happen, but Micic has been playing a little bit more. 4 out of the last 5 games, he's played around 12 minutes. He's got the skill set to step into that role and try to organize the offense a little bit more. I just don't know if they would want to do it. But 3,300 point guard, if Cason Wallace ends up getting like 40% ownership after it happens, Micic will be unowned. He's also live to not play at all. I just want to put that out there.
Very much so. Like I think the most likely scenario, if he ends up being out, is that you see Giddey start at the point and Wallace ends up playing shooting guard and playing a boatload of minutes. But I think that's kind of the assumption most people would have.
Yeah, I think they're either starting Wallace or Joe in that situation.
Yeah.
Lakers side though, 13% ownership to AD, 11 to LeBron. There's no Cam Reddish here. I think AD is the best play on the slate that you can pay for. Although, don't get me wrong, I do love Donovan Mitchell, but 10,500 power forward center. The matchup fits him like a glove. OKC, not a great rebounding team by choice. And even if they had the choice, Chet Holmgren is going to have some trouble trying to move around Anthony Davis if Anthony Davis wants a rebound. I think he is very live for like a 30-20 day today. I'm a big fan of AD. And the fact that you can put him in at power forward is the icing on the cake.
Yeah. And the fact that, OKC 101 possessions per 48 minutes, sixth fastest team in the NBA. So you're getting the track meet style deal there. There's nobody down low. Yeah, Chet Holmgren's built like a pencil. That's useful for a guy like AD to go up against. He's got about 70 pounds on him. So useful as well. I mean, that's the thing that I think always gets underrated for Anthony Davis in some of these spots. People talk about how injury prone he is. He has a big body, over 250 pounds down in the post, and can step out and knock down shots. 1.5 DraftKings points per minute player, 37 minutes, 38 minutes, as many minutes a night as he can handle in these spots because they just don't want to play Jackson Hayes anymore in the backup 5 role. They're going to some small ball, Christian Wood style lineups now because it's just working better for them. Anthony Davis is awesome. He's definitely the guy from a spend up perspective that I would want to get to the most of. And then also, I'm giving a little bit of a boost to some of the OKC guys to kind of rotate around stuff there. I'd be okay getting to a little bit more shade than I currently have and kind of living with that as well and maybe trimming some of the AD. But there's no question that you see a 13% Anthony Davis on a 5-game slate against a team that doesn't have like any semblance of a big body down in the post. This should be really fun for him. And as you said, OKC, one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA by choice, but it is what it is.
Anything else for the Lakers? Like obviously, if you like LeBron, play LeBron. He's 9,900 small forward, power forward. The rest of the team looks terrible.
Christian Wood, 4,500. I'm getting to a little bit of him, more of like, he's played himself into this rotation and he's been better than what he's got right now for a fantasy point per minute rate, 0.93 here. That's largely in part because now he's sharing floors with Anthony Davis or LeBron James specifically at times. And Austin Reeves isn't exactly a fantasy zero. D'Angelo Russell's not a fantasy zero. Both of those guys over a fantasy point per minute rate, but nothing that I'm appealed to, that I'm super excited to get to. Probably going to be more of like a showdown type play.
I mean, if Christian Wood is 4% owned and Thad Young is 20-something% owned, again, if you don't want it to be Jonte Porter. Ooh, Kyle Lowry on track to play. There's some news for Miami.
That kind of came out of nowhere. Oh, so now more.
Yeah, they look worse now.
So it's great. You went from 0 to like negative shares of Miami guys. That's cool.
Anything else you want to add before we toss this one over to Live Before Lock?
Nope. Let's get ourselves out of here. Go enjoy some football here this evening as well. I'm sure we got an NFL show for that one coming up, don't we?
Tonight? I don't think so. No,
we don't. Okay.
We're done. NBA at Live Before Lock coming up next, and then we end this. You'd be surprised. I actually read that off at the 6:15 mark, but I wouldn't expect you to listen to that. Feels like Adam's still here. Anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. Hit that like button. Shout out to BetMGM. Jordan, behind the virtual glass. I'm going to get on out of here. Enjoy your night. Peace.
Jesus, Jordan. This guy. What is happening, everybody? It is Monday night, and I know there's a football game on, but guess what? We got an NBA slate upcoming as well, and myself and Matt Belman are here to break it down for you. We also got Rich, who's manning the projection, so if anybody gets ruled out over the course of the show and projections are getting updated, bring Rich in to see what it is that he's made some alterations to and why, and the only thing that we're going to ask for you guys along the way is just simply like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's only going to take a half second of your time, and we appreciate it a whole bunch, and allows us to bring you guys great offers like what's going on at BetMGM right now, where if you sign up at BetMGM using the link that we have below, you bet $5. I'm not making this up, Matt Belman. This is a true fact. You bet $5 at BetMGM after you sign up using the link we have below, and they give you $158 in bonus bets. This is the simplest way for you guys to build a betting bankroll. So take advantage of that opportunity if you guys have not already, because it's a deal that I suspect is going to be going away at the end of the football season. We don't know for sure on the timeline, but it's a very good value now, and I don't think it's going to be here for all that long. So guys, sign up at BetMGM if you haven't already. And if you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Matt, what is happening and how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty good. No news is good news, so uneventful, which is always good over here. I was going to say there is a football game going on right now, but we're doing this show at a perfect time. It's halftime of the game, so people can tune in, get their NBA news while, instead of watching whatever halftime's going on. And other than that, I'm good. How was your weekend?
It was good. And the football game is shit also, which is more reason for you guys to watch this and prepare for the NBA slate, because the Bills are up 21-7 right now. I assume they're going to end up winning in a blowout. So yeah, stick around. We got the NBA slate here to go ahead and talk about. And yeah, it was a good weekend. I had my dad came up and visited from Florida. He just left a little while ago. My brother, he's in med school. He came and stayed for the weekend as well because my dad was here. So it was good. Hung out with the family and got to spend time with them in between the shows that I did over the weekend. So it was all well and good, and ready to talk some more NBA DFS, just like most other days of the week here. Starting with the super chat that we have from Ace of Spade, who wants to know the best options for DK tiers today, which always I'm prepared to talk some DK tiers here. And in tier 1 for me, we do have some interesting talking points here about some players, because SGA is in tier 1. He's listed as questionable to play. Here's what makes it easy for me to say go with SGA here, is that we also have Anthony Davis and LeBron James in this tier. So in a scenario, Matt, where SGA was to get ruled out, it's pretty easy to go, well, I'm just going to play Anthony Davis or LeBron James instead because they're in the same tier. They're playing against each other. But this is a massive piece of news on the slate. So outside of tiers, how are you approaching the SGA situation with him being questionable heading into lock, and this game being so much later than the other games that it stands to reason that when we get an update on SGA's status, all the other games are probably going to have already locked?
I'm with you. And just for the tiers question, I prefer Davis over Shea anyways. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I think they're projected very similarly. I see Davis with a slightly higher projection, so I prefer him there. As far as the Shea news goes, I think there's a lot of merit in backloading lineups tonight. The two main games, specifically this game, is much later than any of the other games. The problem is this game still doesn't start until 90 minutes after that Indiana game. That said, if Shea is out, guys like Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Cason Wallace, all of them become some of the best players on the slate. So I think it behooves you to be able to get exposure to all of them, even if it means sacrificing some early guys, knowing that if Shea's in, you're going to have to maneuver your lineups in a different way. And then Shea becomes a really good play. So I like it either way, to be honest.
Yeah, and I really do like getting to SGA right now. And this is one of those situations that's very difficult to project for in terms of ownership projections because, that's based on data. But there's going to be a lot of people who just get into lock that otherwise might have played SGA that go, yeah, not putting this guy who's questionable into my lineups right now. So I think in large field GPPs, he's going to be very, very low owned today. So that also brings me to, and we're going to also continue with the rest of tiers, but I also want to tie this into Cap and Akello to ask me a player that I really like in single entry. For right now, it's SGA. I like the flexibility it gives me by having him in a piece who I assume is going to be very low owned if he does ultimately end up playing.
When you say very low owned, what do you think?
I would guess that he ends up coming in if he plays and if the news comes out when I think it's going to. I think he's 5% owned in single entry, maybe less.
So you're saying if the news comes out at 10 that he's in, 10 Eastern.
Yeah, then I don't think people play him at that point.
I think it'll be hard for people to play him. I think he's a little bit higher owned than you think just because people want to play him. But I don't have any qualms with your argument. I was just curious as to what you thought that ownership would come in as.
And by the way, this is specific to single entry. I think he's going to be extremely low. He's going to be under-owned in large field tournaments as well if he plays. But I think especially in single entry where a lot of people are just playing, like 1, 2, single entry, only one lineup.
Right.
But people who are generally like hand building one lineup for single entry, they're just gonna be like, hey, no SGA for me today. Don't want to deal with the headaches of which I understand. So SGA, I think, is a pretty strong contrarian option that people aren't going to want to get to. And if he doesn't play, they'll have to make some alterations there. But tier 2, this is very easily Jason Tatum for me. Tier 3, Kristaps Porzingis, both Boston guys benefiting from Jaylen Brown sitting out tonight. Tier 4, I'm going with Mikal Bridges, but there's a lot of guys who are really close here. Bridges, Derek White, Nick Claxton, DeMar DeRozan. I can make a good case for Derek White here, but since I already picked a couple of Boston guys in other tiers, I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges in tier 4. Tier 5, Chet Holmgren, who already looks good as is, but will look even better in a scenario where if SGA does happen to sit out. And then tier 6, I'm going to be going with Jordan Clarkson there. So thank you very much, Ace of Spade, for the super chat. And those are my best options in each tier. And if anybody is watching in the Discord channel, you want to add us over the course of the show, throw those questions in and we will certainly be answering them as we go. Let's see what else we have on the slate. So in terms of injuries, SGA is the big one. He's listed as questionable. LeBron James questionable, but he's always questionable. It's super annoying because one day he's going to get ruled out. We're going to get blindsided by it, but we can't consider these questionable injuries to be serious because he's questionable on the injury report every day. But are you like me, LeBron Fugazi, we're calling on this tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I know he did miss, like I might have been their last game, but I'm sure he was ruled like out before then. It wasn't this questionable. When these guys are questionable, I expect they play.
The worst questionable designation that I could remember seeing in recent memory, LeBron James is going for the scoring record last year. He's got all his friends from high school are there. His kids are there sitting courtside. His wife, all of the celebrities are there. Like everybody played high school basketball with is there. Listed as questionable on the injury report. Like there was just no chance he was sitting out that game. And that just goes to show just how ridiculous the Lakers injury reports could be with these scenarios. So anyway, I don't take LeBron being questionable very seriously. I do take SGA questionable seriously. We've got D'Angelo Russell questionable. Bruce Brown is questionable. Aaron Nesmith is questionable. Patrick Williams is questionable. Kyle Lowry is questionable, though reports indicate he's going to warm up and intend to play. It seems like he's, while officially questionable, probably more towards the probable side. So that's what we're looking at as far as players who are currently questionable right now. Outside of SGA, are there any other of these players that are questionable that could massively impact your lineups in any kind of way?
No, just no. I mean, it's SGA, and then, the trickle-down effect isn't really that big for the other guys. I mean, depending on what happens, certainly guys will look, better or worse, but it's really the SGA news is all I'm personally waiting for. How about you?
Yeah, it's mainly going to be the SGA news. Other stuff, I'll run it through the late swap tool here over at Stochastic, and it'll be, little things that end up changing. Like D'Angelo Russell is out, then yeah, there'll be some extra value that opens up from the Lakers that would change, but like nothing that would cause me to massively overhaul my lineups in the same way as if SGA was about to be ruled out. So let's talk about that scenario. And let's assume right now that we just have flexibility and we could kind of get to whoever we wanted to. I want to give people a sense of who's going to benefit the most in a scenario where SGA doesn't play. So let's talk about it from a couple of different angles here, Matt. First off, where the minutes go, and then second, where the usage goes. So in a scenario where SGA is to be ruled out, who do you expect would be the cheap guy that you're most apt to want to get to?
Definitely the cheap guy is Cason Wallace. Should step into really big minutes. He's a rookie out of Kentucky. He's already in the rotation, so I would expect him to be a heavy part of the rotation. The sleeper there is Trey Mann, who is a better fantasy guy than Cason Wallace. Mm-hmm. I would expect Wallace to play more, but I think Trey Mann would become very viable in like large field GPPs. So yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to also assume that it's going to be Wallace is the guy who would benefit the most as far as the cheap guys go, particularly because we've already seen his minutes kind of start to trend up. Now, here's the downside. Dog shit as a fantasy producer. Cason Wallace this year is playing 21.4 minutes per game, averaging 14.08 DraftKings points, which means what? He's scoring like 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute. So if you go in, you plug him in for 30 minutes, you're still only getting to like 20 fantasy points for Casey Wallace, but still, that would make him viable on this sort of slate for sure. Now, if we talk about the other end of things, and Casey Wallace, yeah, that would be a cheap guy that I'd be trying to get to. Terrence Mann could potentially see more minutes. Isaiah Joe is another guy. So Isaiah Joe, I already have some lineups in right now with him in. So my expectation would be that in terms of players, I'd be prioritizing be like Isaiah Joe and Casey Wallace, and then maybe Trey Mann is more like a tertiary value option I'd be looking at from OKC. But now as far as the other guys go, right? The players that are normally part of the lineup, Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams. I've got some data pulled up here on the usage for the Oklahoma City Thunder when SGA is off the court. And there's some interesting stuff here, Matt. First off, who'd you guess leads the Oklahoma City Thunder in usage in minutes that SGA has not played this year?
Jalen Williams.
Yeah, easy. Jalen Williams there. Here's something that I didn't really expect to see because Josh Giddey hasn't been shooting the ball as much this year. He's a 23.3% usage rate in minutes that he's played without SGA. Something else as well with Josh Giddey is that his minutes have been on the decline this year. Like we haven't seen him play a whole bunch. I would think that he stands to gain the most, even versus some of the minimum salary guys. He stands to gain the most in terms of playing time that I would feel good about. Like Josh Giddey, I think would really, really see a change in what we could expect for his ceiling of minutes if there is no SGA on the court. So here are the recent games that we've gotten out of Josh Giddey from a playing time perspective. 27 minutes last game. That was the most that he had played in a meaningful amount of time. Because before that, 27 minutes, 22 minutes, 20 minutes, 26, 23, 22, 26, 26, 21. So Josh Giddey's minutes haven't been really as high this year as it was in previous years. Last season, we saw Josh Giddey average 31 minutes per game. He has not played over 30 minutes since November 12th. It's been a long time, over 2 months since Josh Giddey last played 30 minutes. If SGA is out, I feel pretty good saying Giddey plays north of 30 minutes today in a competitive game. So Josh Giddey would look much better in a scenario where there is no of SGA, as would Jalen Williams. But Josh Giddey is somebody who I don't get to really much of right now that I would be prioritizing getting to as many lineups as possible if SGA sits.
I'm with that. I love Jalen Williams in that scenario. Giddey, you talked about. Chet Holmgren, those are the main three. And the one, you mentioned how Casey Wallace is not a good fantasy producer, and he's not. So on one hand, he's going to play more minutes with the likes of Giddey and Jalen Williams tonight. But on the other, there's going to be no Shea. So maybe he has a little bit higher usage in this spot than he otherwise might normally not. I'm not saying that's for sure, but could see it. I mean, honestly, Shea is so good and takes up so much usage that everyone gets a huge bump. Doesn't mean they're all going to play well, but everyone gets a huge bump on paper.
Yeah, and that's also true as well. It's not like we have to say there's only one player. Every single other player on the Oklahoma City Thunder would look better. One thing that I was a little surprised by, Chet Holmgren this year, only a 23.3% usage rate when we've seen SGA off the court. Now, sure, that is the same number as Josh Giddey, but I thought we'd see a little bit higher of usage for Chet. But I guess it's harder for him to actually get the ball in those kind of scenarios where SGA is off the court. He still does lead the team in fantasy production with SGA off the court this year. 1.27 DraftKings points per minute for Chet in minutes without SGA. 1.31 FanDuel minutes. That leads the team in both categories. The other players this year that are averaging over a DK fantasy point per minute when SGA is off the court, Jalen Williams, both of them. I've said before, that should be illegal. Teams should not be allowed to have two players on the same team with the same name. Too confusing. But there's Jalen Williams, Jalen with a Y, and then Jalen with an E. So they both score over a fantasy point per minute, but Jaylin Williams, not something to be considering either way for today. And then Josh Giddey is the other one. So of the guys that actually get rotation minutes, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey, all of them average over a fantasy point per minute. The closest to that of the guys who come off the bench, Trey Mann, 0.95 fantasy points per minute when he plays without SGA, which is probably the majority of his minutes because Trey Mann's mostly been in mop-up duty this year. So that's kind of a rundown of everything we'd be looking at for OKC if SGA doesn't play. But is there anything else you would add to the SGA situation?
No, not really. I mean, I think we covered it. I think if he's out, you want as much of OKC as you can get to. If he's in, I want him.
We got a very interesting question in Discord here. I like where your head is at. I love money is his name. And I Love Money is asking us thoughts on fading the first 3 games and focusing on the last 2 games. So I Love Money, I presume you're only playing one lineup today and you're trying to figure out the best way to navigate for the different news situations. What do you think of this strategy, Matt? Should I love money be fading the first 3 games on the slate, just playing the last 2 games and giving themselves maximum flexibility?
When I don't know if should is the right answer, but I think that is a totally viable way to play it. I mean, I think if SGA's in, you're a little bit hamstrung just because all the best plays then are really expensive. Like the Lakers guys are expensive. SGA is expensive. If SGA ends up being out, I think that's the optimal way to build, because I don't think 5 OKC players, 6 OKC players in that scenario is a bad play. However, going in that if he's in, you're not totally screwed, but you're just really hamstrung in terms of building a lineup. So I don't know if should's the right answer. I think it's viable.
You could. You're very dependent on SGA sitting if you do that, though. Yeah. Very dependent, because if you get into that scenario and then SGA is in, you're kind of fucked, because so much of the good value will have already happened. And my favorite pay up option on the slate is Jason Tatum, and you're going to be missing out on Jason Tatum if you aren't playing the earlier games. Because right now, if I look through, let me look at my exposures. So the 2 later games are Lakers, OKC, and Utah, Indiana. The guys that I think you really want to be getting to from the early games, and this is another way we could break it down as well, Matt, is who are the players from the early games that we feel like you have to have some exposure to? Even if you're only playing one lineup, these are players who I think you should definitely want to have in lineups, or at least consider. Sam Hauser, Jason Tatum, Dennis Smith Jr. is another one for me. Kind of unfortunate, but that just kind of is the case with this slate. And then also Thad Young, who's going to be a popular play in the front court and going up against the Boston Celtics. Kind of surprised Thad Young hasn't been priced up a little bit more aggressively, especially on DraftKings, considering he's been playing pretty big minutes for Toronto. Is there anybody you would add to that list or take away from that list that are high priorities for you for the first 3 games on the slate?
So for me, and this is another reason I think it's more viable than you do, there isn't anyone in the early games that I think is like a lock. You have to play them. I think the guys you mentioned are all good plays. But for me, if Shea is out, the other guys are better plays. So like you are taking a risk, but none of those guys are like the, Jaden Hardy's without Luka type of plays. They're good plays for the slate, but the slate doesn't have that many good plays. There isn't a ton of value.
Yep. As of right now, not a ton of value. And if SGA is out, that would certainly change it. But so the one guy that I think you absolutely want to have from the early games, and I agree, like I have Sam Hauser a bunch right now. If SGA was to be ruled out, I'd probably regret the amount of Sam Hauser I have right now. But I would not want to forego Jason Tatum on the slate with Jaylen Brown out. And then also Jason Tatum being pretty reasonably priced. Jason Tatum on FanDuel is 10,000, and then on DraftKings he's just below 10K. So he is my overall favorite spend up option right now. Is it Tatum for you? Is there somebody else that as of right now you do like spending up for?
I like Anthony Davis a lot. And again, like our tools think they're very similar plays. They're back to back in the boom bust tool. Tatum's getting more ownership because of the price tag. But it's not like he's coming in as big chalk either. The other part of this, which I think that we didn't really touch on, is that Indiana, Utah does have a lot of good plays. So if you get the Shea news, like maybe right before that game that he's in, you can play a lot of mid-tier from that Utah game. You're really screwed if you get SGA is in after that. So we see this very eye to eye. I don't like Tatum as much as you do, but I think you could be fine either way on that stance. Like, he's 23% owned. I think he's a good play. He's 21% chance to be optimal. So I think he's a really good play, but not a must like he is for you.
Yeah, it's he's my favorite spend up option right now. It also really helps the positions he's eligible at the forward spots. That's something else that I think makes him look pretty good. And then also I will read off his fantasy production with Jaylen Brown off the court, which is good. Shouldn't surprise anybody. And, in all scenarios, Jason Tatum is a very good fantasy producer. But this year, when you put Jason Tatum on the court without Jaylen Brown, 1.45 DraftKings points per minute, which is a very high mark there for Jason Tatum. So consider 1.5 fantasy points per minute for this guy. And then if he's going to be playing minutes in like the mid to upper 30s, as we expect, you're looking at a pretty hefty projection for Jason Tatum there. So that is my favorite spend up. couple other questions that we have coming in from the super chats, as well as questions for us in Discord. And don't forget, if you guys want to be in our Discord channel, sign up for any package at stokastic.com. The most affordable one we have is the NBA lineup generator package, less than $15. And later on, because it doesn't look like we're going to have some kind of crazy influx in news. So let's say maybe like 15 minutes, Jordan, 10, 15 minutes. We'll build some lineups in the lineup generator. We'll put them up on screen for FanDuel and DraftKings, and we'll see what looks good there. So if you guys want to sign up for any package at Stokastic, use one of the links that we have below, and then you get access to our Discord channel. You get at me whenever you want, over the course of the day, at night, the middle of the night. If you want to send me some, nice messages or sext me in the Discord, all's fair game. I answer. I have to do anything. There are people who are in the Discord, Matt. People don't know this. I am absolutely obligated to answer any kind of requests or questions I get in the Discord channel. So all day, all night, I'm in there. You guys could at me whenever with questions, really about anything. But some more super chats, as well as the questions in Discord. First here, True Rages. He's got his entire cash game lineup here and wants to know if we have any issues with it. So yeah, I do have a couple of issues. So he has Dennis Smith Jr., Sam Hauser, Cason Wallace, Tatum, Jonte Porter, Keontae George, 80, Chet Holmgren. Wants to know what he should take. I would not play Cason Wallace in a cash game. I wouldn't play Jonte Porter in a cash game either.
Same. I do have kind of an interesting, point that kind of meshes how me and you feel together. I don't think there's anything wrong with just playing Jason Tatum and then waiting for the late news. Because like we said, you're already screwed if Shea is out. So like if you play Tatum, like you're just basically playing him over Anthony Davis, in my opinion, which SGA being out doesn't really affect how you feel about Anthony Davis. I think that's viable. Play Tatum and then no one else.
I think you should play Sam Hauser in cash games. He's projected.
I was just talking about the first question, not about the cash game question.
Okay, yeah. So as far as the cash game goes, we see that True Rages doesn't have Sam Hauser in his cash game lineup. Hauser's projected for 40% ownership. He's probably gonna be like 70 to 80% owned in cash games. In tournaments, do you need to have Sam Hauser? No, because if SGA gets ruled out, other value opens up. But I have a whole bunch of Sam Hausers, my most rostered value play. And I really think you're screwing yourself in cash games if you don't play him, because if SGA plays, then you just don't have access to one of the best overall value plays on the slate. It's also going to enable you to easier get up to some of the studs that you're looking at getting to. So I really think you should be playing Sam Hauser in cash games. I don't like Jonte Porter or Cason Wallace for cash on this. Like Cason Wallace looks great if SGA is out, but that's a big dice to roll for a cash game where you're not looking for a top 1% lineup. Yeah. You're looking for a lineup that beats most of the lineups in the field, not all of them.
James Cason Wallace.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, he's probably not going to score great anyways, even if Shea is out. He's definitely not a cash play, because your second point that I was about to say, you're not trying to beat the entire field. You're just trying to get in that top half.
All right, let's see what we end up getting to for other questions. Next one is James Magruder wants to know best play at each position and favorite cheap values. Okay, so let's go ahead and go position by position for DraftKings, because I know James is a DK player here. And we could go with our favorite players at each position, Matt. Starting point guard, we'll go back and forth. And let's start at point guard, where I'm going to go with Dennis Smith Jr. How about yourself?
It's so hard to answer without having the Shea news, but I guess, saying he's in, I'll agree with you on DSJ.
All right, so let's go to shooting guard then. Shooting guard, my favorite guy at shooting guard, that is going to be Jordan Clarkson.
Clarkson for me too.
Next position, we got the small forward spot. Small forward, that is currently Sam Hauser for me. How about you at small forward?
I like him anyways, and I love him if Shea is out. Give me Jalen Williams.
Yep. So I kind of want to throw in so Jason Tatum for me at power forward. I'll throw in Jalen Williams as well. So one of the ways that I do think is very reasonable to play this slate is to give ROI boosts in the Sims tool to other guys from OKC that we already would view as like okay plays that would really benefit in the absence of SGA. So the two guys that stand out the most to me that we should be doing this for are Jalen Williams and Josh Giddey. I give both of them positive ROI boost, makes them show up in a little bit more of my lineups, and it's going to do a couple of things for me. Gives me more flexibility if SGA is out, but then also just guys that I already would be fine with having them in some lineups here. So I think that's the best way to play it in the Sims tool.
We just got Gary Trent out. Does that do anything for you?
Well, and Patrick, Gary Trent is out. Patrick Williams is also out. So Rich is updating the projections. We'll bring him in a couple minutes, but Yes, it absolutely does, especially because this is a slate where we didn't have a whole lot of value, Matt. And it's two pieces that came out in a row here. So it's Patrick Williams being out. That's not going to really move the needle in any kind of real profound way for me. Gary Trent being out, though, this is going to kind of force Toronto to play some bigger lineups. And then also, let me go ahead and look at Toronto, because at no point was I expecting Gary Trent to be sitting. And now all of a sudden we have to start asking, like, hey, does Jonte Porter maybe come more into consideration per the super chat we had before, where somebody had Jonte Porter in his lineup? Because before, when Gary Trent was out, there was like OG Anunoby could just play 40 minutes every game. But now we do have some minutes that are available off the bench. I think that Dennis Schroeder is one guy that we have to look at as being a little bit of a stronger option. I think we're going to see more of Schroeder and Quickly play together than we otherwise would have.
Yeah. Now Toronto, all the main guys. I don't think there's anyone like off the bench that I like, but all the main pieces now all just look a little bit better. I think you can put RJ Barrett in that mix too. Like Quickly, Schroeder, and Barrett all look better.
Yeah, let's see. What are these guys' price point? So I was already getting some exposure to Schroeder and to Quickly. I think it's pretty reasonable to expect each of them to play a couple more minutes. I agree with you on RJ Barrett as well. Jonte Porter is somebody who, once again, like not like directly benefiting from the absence of Gary Trent, but I just have to think this means a little bit more of a trend towards Toronto playing bigger lineups. So there isn't one guy that I want to jam from Toronto, but it's just across the board. A little bit more Thad Young, a little bit more Dennis Schroeder, a little bit more Quickly Barrett. Is that more or less how you're seeing it as well?
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking to see now if OKC plays tomorrow, which they do, a TNT game against the Clippers. So I have no idea how that affects the Shea news, if it does, but maybe makes me lean slightly more that he might not play. I don't know.
What is the matchup that OKC has tomorrow again?
TNT game against the Clippers, his former team, for whatever that means.
Yeah, could be. We could end up seeing him. I mean, he's young. If he sits, it's just because he's physically unable to
I
play,
agree.
in my opinion.
They're not. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, but pretty interesting. And let's bring Rich in here, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan. And let's ask him a couple of things. First, Patrick Williams just ruled out. Does that really significantly change anything, Rich? Because at first glance, like, all right, there's some extra minutes to go around here for Chicago, but not anybody who becomes like massively desirable for the Bulls. Is there anything that I'm missing there?
No, you're pretty spot on with the Bulls rotation. Patrick Williams missed last game, and I assumed that Dalen Terry was going to get a lot of his minutes when he was out, but he didn't. He barely got any. And Javon Carter, oddly enough, saw a big bump in minutes that game. Tonight they're playing Cleveland, so I wouldn't be surprised that Chicago could definitely get away with having some more small ball lineups because Vooch and Drummond will be handling the five.
Yeah, and also just to back up your point, some of those end of bench minutes. I mean, we saw 23 for Javon Carter. It doesn't really make him massively desirable. Terry, to your point, only played 3. So the Bulls, Patrick Williams out. We've seen this doesn't really change all that much. But then the Gary Trent news, that kind of comes out of left field. And Matt and I were kind of speculating here, like, all right, what are we going to do for Toronto? And I think it makes a lot of guys on Toronto look better. Not one guy who goes from like an unknown guy to a jam type play, but who's the value option off the bench that you do think potentially benefits the most? Is it Jonte Porter or is it somebody else?
No,
I was asking Rich. Sorry, Matt.
No, you're good.
The guy I think will benefit the most, you kind of touched on that as well, is I think you take a harder look at Dennis Schroeder. I think he will play alongside Emmanuel Quickly, like you said, a lot more. And then I think the starters just get a couple extra minutes. They stay out there for a little bit longer a time. And then they just rotate like Jalen McDaniels and Chris Boucher in for a couple more minutes as well. It's not really a Gary Trent's out and all his minutes just go to the next guy on the bench kind of thing.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and check some of the projections here because we did just get that update that Rich pushed through. So, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up on screen, we could let Rich get back to the Discord and updating projections in case there's any kind of other breaking news that comes in. But let's just do a recap of some of those projections that Rich just updated. So let's go to the Toronto Raptors, if you wouldn't mind pulling them on screen here, Jordan. And we could see what some of those updated numbers look like for this team now, because we've got, never mind. Gary Trent update, not quite pushed through yet, but will be soon. I thought it was for some reason, and then I just looked at it incorrect. So we'll come back to this in a second when it is all updated. But in the interim, let's get to more of your guys' questions here. So we've got the super chat. We answered that one from James Magruder. Although, does this change anything, Matt? Who's your overall favorite value play on the slate?
Man, with Shea in, the value is so dearth on this slate.
You brought a lot of good vocab words with you to the show today, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna say no matter what, Cason Wallace, because I think he's in play either way. But if Shea is out, I'm fine playing him over Hauser, even if Shea is in. I think they're like the exact same price. So give me Cason Wallace.
I am going to go with Thad Young for now. Thad Young is going to be the guy who I answer for this question. Now let's get back into the Discord channel and see what some of the people in Discord have for us as far as the questions are concerned. And cool, of course, go to open up Discord and it immediately closes on me. Here we go. Nick Rue. Nick is getting to a ton of Dennis Smith Jr. across his 20 lineups. Any good pivots? First off, I don't have an issue with getting to a lot of Dennis Smith Jr. Who's your favorite pivot off of Dennis Smith Jr. though, Matt?
My favorite, he's 4,800. My favorite pivot off of him is, maybe Chris Dunn.
It is Keontae George for me. Keontae George, $4,900, projected for about a third of the ownership of Dennis Smith Jr. Only a $100 salary difference between the two of them. So I think that's the easiest way to go from one guy to the other would be paying the $100 extra and getting yourself to Keontae George instead of Dennis Smith Jr. I'm well overweight to the field on George. I think he's a good contrarian play, but Dennis Smith Jr. I think is also a good-looking chalk option on the slate. I'm right there in line with the field on him. And then Rico Rod, 1980, wants to know favorite FanDuel single entry option. So if you're building a one lineup on FanDuel right now, Matt, who are one or two guys that you'd want to prioritize for a FanDuel single entry?
For a FanDuel single entry, pulling up the data right now. I'm going to go with Anthony Davis. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm still going to go with Anthony Davis, coming in with a little bit of leverage. Number one in our boom bust tool. The power forward eligibility there really helps. So give me Davis, 23% chance of being optimal, only getting 20% ownership. Give me AD.
I'm going to go with Bruce Brown, who is still only sub 20% owned, despite some of the success that he's had in showing upside in recent games without Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton remains out, and I do think that Bruce Brown, somebody's going a little bit underrepresented on FanDuel, where the pricing is a little bit tighter today, and he's only $5,800. So Bruce Brown, who in my set of lineups here, I ended up more than double the field on him. Good option to be getting to. Grown Simba wants to know who our so I'd say this grown Simba. He always wants to know about the exotic plays of the day. Matt, who's your favorite exotic play of the night? And now keep in mind that when we ask this question, Eric, he's only allowed to answer a white guy, but we're going to open up the door. You could, whoever you want it to be for whatever reason, who's your exotic play of the night?
I am going to go with a white guy. Give me Chet Holmgren.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you.
No matter what, SGA in or out, I really like that game. So give me Chet.
I'm actually going to answer. Let me see. Which way do I want to go? I'm going to go with Keontae George. We got to ask that question in chat earlier about a good pivot off of Dennis Smith Jr. and I went to Keontae George. I'm going to stick with Keontae George as somebody who's good to be getting to for this slate. Exotic play of the night, Keontae George. Crack in Tiles. He is late to the show, but the Sims are showing all the Sam Merrill I want. He wants to know, is that gross? Also wants to know if we have any good pivots. So one thing I'm going to ask first is which site are you playing on? You're getting yourself to a lot of Sam Merrill. I am going to assume that you're getting to more of Sam Merrill on FanDuel than DraftKings because I get to some of Sam Merrill building DK lines, not a ton, but if you build FanDuel lines, you are going to be getting to a lot of Sam Merrill. So Kraken Tiles. Oh, actually for Owner's Box. All right. So I was 0 for 2 there. It was none of the above. He's getting to him on Owner's Box. So let me pull up the Owner's Box pricing because I don't know it off the top of my head here and find a good pivot for him on Owner's Box. All right. So if we go ahead and look at the projections page, and now also, by the way, Jordan, The Raptors projections are updated, so we could show that on here in a second as well. But owner's box, the price on Sam Merrill is $3,100. All right, so that's just a crazy price. They have Sam Merrill min price on owner's box. That is totally fine at the owner's box price, $3,100. If he was $3,100 on DraftKings, we'd be jamming him over there as well. So I'm good with owner's box there, cracking tiles. I say stick with them. As far as pivots go, there's nobody really. Sam Merrill's guard eligible at $3,100. The next best projected backcourt player that's closest to Sam Merrill, it's nobody. There's nobody in that price range that's anywhere close to him. There are no pivots, so stick with Sam Merrill. Tim Lee, flag plant. Is there a low-owned guy that you're planting your flag in today, Matt? Just aggressively plant that flag in there and be like, this is who I'm playing. Who you planting your flag in?
I don't think Chet Holmgren's getting that much ownership, is he?
Let's see. I think we might have an ownership update. And what is the most recent? Yes, we have an ownership update from 1 minute ago. That's at 60 seconds in Celsius time. Chet Holmgren, 16% owned.
Okay, well, I'm going to go even lower than owned. Lower owned. This is a deep GPP play. Only if Shea is out, Trey Mann.
Okay. Trey Mann. I know you mentioned him before. Nobody's going to be playing Trey Mann today. So I could certainly see him being somebody who, if you wanted to go to him and he gets right on SGA, and him also being the guy who's going to get the minutes, low probability outcome. If you hit on those things, you could get yourself a low-owned tournament win on a small slate, only 5 games. IC50 wants to know our favorite pivot off of Hauser, if anybody. Who's a player priced around Sam Hauser you like getting to, Matt? I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Hayson Wallace.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Let's see, 3,900 with forward eligibility. I'm going to go with the same thought, different team. Isaiah Joe. Hey, Joe. And we are caught up on those. Let's see if we're caught up on the super chats here, which we are. Jordan, you know what we're going to do here, Jordan? Let's build some lineups in the lineup generator for the people. We've got about 15 minutes to go here, so should be a good amount of time for us to build some lineups in the lineup generator. If you guys want to copy any of these lineups, make some adjustments to it, this will give you ample time to go ahead and do, and we'll talk about what some of these lineups look like. Let's start by building DraftKings lineups, and we'll do balanced ones. We'll do balanced lineups. Matt was texting me before the show and said he really wanted to build balanced lineups in the lineup generator. So go with that. And don't forget, if you guys want to sign up for the lineup generator, there's a link for it below. It's less than $15. It's going to have lineups built for you. You get access to our Discord channel. Also, our ownership projections, our player projections, they are in here as well. So if you look at a lineup that you like, but maybe there's a player or two you want to make a change to, you could pull up that lineup individually and you could swap some of the players out. And from there, you can see what our ownership and player projections are on them. And if you right now look at the ownership that we have on screen, those are of the lineups we built, the players we got to the most. So it's a good idea of which players our data is viewing as most optimal for the slate. So Sam Hauser, Jordan Clarkson, Dennis Smith Jr., Alex Caruso. Do you have issues with any of these players you're seeing showing up at the top of our lineups, Matt? And is there anybody who isn't showing up here that you would maybe want to get more of?
No, I mean, I think when you're looking at this stuff, you kind of let the tools do the work. And I don't see any like glaring problems either way. How about you?
No, I mean, it's fairly in line with what I am getting to as well. That is more Alex Caruso than I have, but maybe when I rerun lineups here for the absence of Patrick Williams, maybe somebody who shows up in more lineups that I hadn't thought really a lot about. But that's one guy there. 38% of Alex Caruso seems like a lot to me. But I'll see when I rerun lineups here for the updated projections. Maybe that will get me to more of him. There is certainly a chance that he plays more minutes here in the absence of Patrick Williams, but is he somebody you put a lot of thought into getting, Alex Caruso?
No, but I do think he gets the biggest bump with no Patrick Williams. Like, he's obviously not going to have a ton of usage with DeRozan, Levine, and Vooch, but he should play a bunch of minutes now. Our tools like him. So, yeah, I think that he honestly might look like the best piece of Chicago, just pricing considered. I mean, all the other guys are still a little bit too cheap for their upside, but fairly priced for their median outcome, meaning Vooch, Levine, and DeRozan. Like, those guys are usually around 8K. They're a little bit cheaper than that. They're all in, so you don't feel comfortable with any one of them, but ultimately each one of them has big upside in any given game.
And before we build FanDuel lineups, I want to ask you, because I know you are getting yourself to some Wallace for tonight. In the event that SGA plays, you're going to leave Wallace in your lineups. You're going to be trying to swap him. How would you handle that kind of scenario, since it seems like you're reserving yourself some spots for Case and Wallace?
At some point, if I do that and I don't get the SGA news till late, I'm going to have to play some of these guys that I wouldn't want to play with SGA in and just get lucky. Wallace is definitely one of them because he's cheap enough where he can get there anyways. Like, he's playing minutes. So Wallace is someone that I would play regardless. If SGA were in right now, he certainly wouldn't be a priority for me. But at under 4K, we just don't have a lot of those guys on this slate. So yeah, I think Wallace is a fine play regardless. A lock for me if SGA is out.
All right. All right. Definitely makes sense to me on that standpoint. And then looking through some of the other players, overweight to Jason Tatum, I'm cool with that. You guys know that I like Jason Tatum a whole bunch on this slate. So let's go and build ourselves some FanDuel lineups now, Jordan Klein. Let's see what's cooking over in the FanDuel world. And same deal. We'll build balanced lineups and we'll see what shows up there. And don't lock anybody in. Skip that. But real quick, before you save anything, oh, never mind. I was going to say, let's just look at one of these lineups here and we'll see what it is that's showing up on screen. Just kind of want to give people an overview of what the lineups look like here. If you just found one that you wanted to play. For this lineup here, we've got Drew Holiday and Colin Sexton at the point guard spots, Austin Reeves and Isaac Okoro in the shooting guard spots, LeBron James, DeMar DeRozan, Aaron Nesmith, Thad Young, Nick Claxton rounding out the lineup. And then if you ever wanted to make any swaps, just click on like Claxton, just so we could show people what it looks like. Yeah, and then if you ever wanted to swap him out, you'll see all the other players that are available at the position, what their fantasy point projection is in ownership. So help you make some of those decisions. So that's some of the ways that you could customize some of the lineups that show up here in the lineup generator. But let's go to the end, Jordan, save and discard some lineups here, and then we will see what it is that we're getting for total exposure for FanDuel purposes. And lots of Sam Merrill, not surprising. So that's why before, Matt, we had somebody ask us about Sam Merrill, and it ended up being an owner's box question. I thought it was a FanDuel question because Sam Merrill is so much cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings that he's showing up a lot. Only $4,500 for Sam Merrill on FanDuel. He's $5K over on DK. It's a good amount of exposure to Sam Merrill, 68%. So just 1% short of being the optimal number as far as I'm concerned here, Matt, because you got to throw in cheap jokes when you're doing DFS shows here. Was it creative? Absolutely not. Was it hacky? Absolutely. Do I regret it? In no way at all. 68% is Sam Merrill. Are you okay with him being the most roster player on FanDuel? Or if you're building lineups, would you try to take him out of some?
Nah, his price point is just there on FanDuel, so I completely get it. On DK, it's a different story, especially with Strus in. Like, if Strus were out, he'd be a fine play on DK. With Strus in, he's a fine play on FanDuel. I'm not going to say he's a must, but he looks like a really good value play.
Yeah, he is overall the best value option I think we have right now on FanDuel. So 4,500 for Sam Merrill. And we've seen the kind of upside he has. It's been infuriating. I don't know how many times you've been on the wrong side of Sam Merrill this year. I know for me, it's been more than a couple. But we've seen games where he goes out. He has he's played 6 minutes in the first quarter. It's like, oh my God, he hit every single shot that he's hit already. And you get Sam Merrill has accumulated a lot of fantasy points really quickly. But the pricing is tighter on FanDuel today than it is on DraftKings outside of Sam Merrill, which is what really does make him elevate up the board there. Is there anything else you're seeing on screen that stands out to you in any kind of way?
No, I can't say there is.
Yeah, if we look at some of the pay-up options, we're getting to LeBron James, Anthony Davis, not as much Jason Tatum as I would like for my own personal taste, but I clearly have no issue with the Anthony Davis, LeBron Jameses of the world or anything like that. So let's go ahead then and go back to just talking about the slate in general. And once again, a roundup on some of the injury situations, because we haven't really gotten too many of the important updates over the course of the show. Gary Trent getting ruled out of left field. That was something, but we still got SGA is questionable. LeBron is questionable. Tend to think that one is fake, though. D'Angelo Russell is questionable. And then we do officially have Bruce Brown is questionable, as well as Aaron Nesmith. So talking about the Pacers situation, Matt, if Nesmith and or Bruce Brown are ruled out, what would you be trying to get to more from the Pacers? Because that is still a situation that exists that could provide us value later in what should be an up-pace matchup against the Jazz.
All the pieces from Indiana look better. Like, they're all secondary now with Halliburton out. But like Isaiah Jackson, even at 4,600, his minutes become more secure. Jalen Smith. It's a good matchup against Utah. So Yeah, everyone in Indiana becomes more viable. Or yeah, in Indiana, not like a must anywhere, but certainly like Indiana a lot more. Real quick on the Toronto news, knowing that, who do you like more now, Schroeder or Dennis Smith Jr.?
I mean, they're in such different price ranges, right? I mean, we got Dennis Schroeder $600 more expensive. I'm doing one final run of my lineups here. I think I'm still going to have more of Dennis Smith Jr., but I don't think it's going to be like massively different between the two of them.
I think Schroeder's just now too cheap for his potential role tonight.
I agree. I think he's a very good option.
He was already looking too cheap. No, I'm with you. DSJ does also.
Yeah, so both of them, if I was only playing one of them, well, here's one way to look at it. If I could only play one, I think I would lean towards Dennis Schroeder, though.
Yeah, okay.
And then what about for the rest of the guys from Toronto? What did you end up doing with everybody else, considering the Gary Trent news?
I think Schroeder's the only must for me. Like I said, I like all the other guys. I like all the other guys we talked about, but it's still a tougher spot against Boston. So I wouldn't mind, Siakam looks good. Barrett looks better. Quickly looks better. But Schroeder is the guy I really feel like I need to play personally.
Yep, I'll get one final update in and running a little bit against the clock, but no real big issues here. Want to double check to make sure that there aren't any questions that we missed in the Discord channel. We did see Hef Love asked RJ Barrett or Colin Sexton. Do you have a lean between those two?
It's Barrett. I do have to go back on something, and it's something I've mentioned multiple times on this show. Trey Mann. Very, very leery of him now because I just looked. I know Shea has missed one game this year. It was November 3rd against the Warriors. Really competitive, high-scoring game. Trey Mann did not touch the floor. So it doesn't mean he won't play tonight, but like even if Shea's out, he's a really, really risky play. So I just can't do it.
So then so you had said before that he was going to be your contrarian guy to get to. Is there somebody else you put in that space?
Yeah, I'm going to put now Lou Dort in that space, who's under 5K, sees a big bump if Shea is out.
I don't have an issue with that. Somebody else who kind of in the same vein as Josh Giddey isn't playing as many minutes this year as we've seen him play in previous years and could definitely pick up extra minutes in the event that there is no SGA out there on the court. Rico Rod, 1980, wants to know our favorite center option for a FanDuel single entry. If you were just playing one center tonight on FanDuel, Matt, which direction would you go? There's not like one center who I view as being predominantly better than other ones. I'm going to answer Anthony Davis for now, which does a couple of things for us. Number one, he's already a pretty good pay-up option. Also is giving us a little bit more flexibility considering the SGA news because they're playing in the same game against each other. If you do get a situation where SGA is out, maybe you can maneuver your lineups a little bit and downgrade him to Chet and upgrade somewhere else. So my favorite overall center option, I'm going to go with Anthony Davis. How about for yourself?
Same. Also because, yeah, the power forward eligibility is nice, but that doesn't mean you can't play him at center. And it's not a loaded center slate. It's actually, there might end up being better forwards on this slate. So I'm going to also go AD. And if you want a true center, it's Chet.
Yeah. Hey, I could totally get behind it, especially because we more or less just gave out the exact same answer there. And all right, making sure that we're all caught up on all the questions with a couple minutes left to go here, which we are. So here's something I want to ask you before we get to lock here. What has changed your lineups the most over the course of the show?
Honestly, the Trent news, because Schroeder becomes a must for me. And I like everyone on Toronto more. So like even Thad Young, there's just more minutes to go around everywhere. Just don't think they're going to pull someone off the bench that they haven't been playing. Trent plays good minutes. I think all the starters and the guys off the bench that already get run play more. What do you think about Thad Young versus Jonte Porter just on like a 1v1? Like, because it's weird to me that Porter's more expensive. That also means that Porter won't get nearly the ownership. But does that even matter?
So I have just under 10% exposure to Jonte Porter, whereas Thad Young is at about half of my lineups. So I really do prefer Thad Young, who I think is going to start. He's going to play bigger minutes. And that's kind of what we've seen them do recently. They've they've given Thad Young a pretty long leash. Surprisingly, it was not something I ever expected them to be doing. And has he been good in those minutes from a real life perspective? Not really, but he's been effective from a fantasy standpoint. And we should expect that to continue as long as he gets big minutes. So the two value plays that I currently have the most exposure to are Sam Hauser and Thad Young. Are you thinking about pivoting Thad Young lineups to Jonte Porter?
Considering it, but I think Thad Young's the better play. Like, I just don't think it's needed in smaller field type stuff. Certainly if Porter draws the start, you go there easily.
Yeah.
But Porter's minutes last game were a little bit fugazi just because it was a lot of blowout run. I also am biased towards not playing him. I have a funny story about Jonte Porter I'll tell you after the show.
Oh, is it private? It's not for the airwaves?
No, it's not private, but I did say it to, I think, Josh on one show, and my wife, who never lets me live down this story, was like, you can't be telling everyone this story.
Well, I mean, I've got stories. Well, listen, there was a contractor that texted my dad over the weekend and had said that it sent a very long message to my dad that his mother had passed away. And my dad, who does not read anything, it was too long of a message for him to read. He did the kind of the I'm sorry that happened or I'm glad that happened to you kind of scenario. So my dad doesn't read any of the message. He gets this really long message from a contractor about how a guy's mom passed away. And my dad gives him a thumbs up and an LOL because he just didn't read the message. So it can't be worse. It can't be worse than that.
No, it's not worse than that. I mean, if we have no more news, I'll just say it now.
I think the audience demands it.
Okay, so this has never happened to me before. I have to preface this story by saying that it's never happened to me prior, never happened to me since. But Jonte Porter is the brother of Michael Porter Jr. So not that that's relevant in this story, but I've known about him for years now because Michael Porter Jr. was a highly touted prospect, went to Missouri, et cetera, et cetera. So his younger brother kind of came up in his wings. This must have been like 5 years ago, this point. You know, early days of Twitter for me. I haven't been on there like forever. So all of a sudden I see Jonte Porter like on my For You page, but something like giving away free Xbox or PlayStation or something. And I'm like, first 10 to direct message me, get it. So of course I'm in his DMs right away because I'm like all hyped on it. Ends up being a scam. I cashed out this person like, I don't know, $15 or whatever. And it was 100% a scam. My wife was like, the whole time it's a scam. I don't know why I didn't listen to her. It was a scam. And she still brings it up to this day. So yeah, I don't know if I can play Jonte Porter after that, even though it was not his fault. So
people in the chat, they're claiming you already told this story.
I did. I said that's why I wasn't going to say it. I told Engleman this story.
I thought you were just, so I wasn't on that show with Josh. I just thought you were too embarrassed to
well, no, I said the story to Josh, and then my wife, who I told to listen to the story, was like, you cannot let people know that story. You sound like such a fool.
Hey, I've spent money on worse things. I would say people don't know this because people are wondering like, hey, well, why does he do so many shows? 75% of the money I make here goes directly to Twitter porn bots. I sign up for every single one that replies to me. I sign up for all of their services. I've gotten nothing out of it so far. I'm not going to stop though. So I get it. Hey. I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, help support Matt Belman's content around here so that he can recover the $15 that he lost to Jonte Porter bots. So guys, once again, thank you very much for watching the show. we will be back here tomorrow to break down another NBA slate. So peace out and have a good night, everybody.